This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Aaron Matte.
Well, a new analysis of corporate TV news has found there is almost no debate about whether the U.S. should go to war in Iraq and Syria.
Here's what I'm tired of hearing from this administration and my friends on the other side and within my party, that this is somehow easy and really not our fight.
They have to act swiftly, because the president made a very good point. He believes he has the authority to do this on his own, and so do I.
So you're talking about a massive response, not hitting one target, but hitting as many as possible.
I think when an American is murdered on television for the purpose of terrorizing Americans, there should be a response that you would not analyze in terms of a normal response to provocation.
You can't imagine the fight against ISIS going in such a way that we would say, you know what, this thing is on the cusp. We need to send in 3,000 U.S. or 5,000 U.S. combat ground troops to win this thing.
Well, but again, that would be saying specifically only 5,000, not 5,000.
No, it would be leaving the option open, which is what a serious commander-in-chief
I think the shorthand that a lot of people use about, no boots on the ground is semantically problematic, because obviously there will be American military personnel with their boots on the ground.
The group Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting found that of more than 200 guests who appeared on network shows to discuss the topic, just 6 voiced opposition to military action. On the high-profile Sunday talk shows, out of 89 guests, there was just one anti-war voice. Katrina vanden Heuvel, editor of The Nation.
I think the president has surrendered to war party in both parties, to a media that has lathered up hysteria about a threat that is not an immediate threat to this country.
To talk more about the report, we're joined by Peter Hart, activism director at FAIR, the author of the new report called Debating How, Not Whether, to Launch a New War. So, Peter, tell us what you found.
Like you said, the numbers sort of speak for themselves. 205 guests, 125 were pro-war, 6 were against the war. This is the wars in Iraq and in Syria. The debate sometimes looked rather passionate. It had the appearances of a real debate, but what they were really debating was the mechanics of war, whether we should drop bombs just on Iraq or on Iraq and Syria, whether Obama was aggressive enough. There were critics of the White House, but they were critics that were pro-war, people like John McCain, who were adamant that whatever Obama was doing was not nearly enough, and that the answer to this was to inflict more violence in Iraq and in Syria. That was the spectrum of debate, from Henry Kissinger to Samantha Power.
It's also interesting that you found that overwhelmingly pro-war opinions voiced on television, and also the majority Democrat.
Yeah, you have the Democratic Party in the person of Barack Obama, and then his affiliates inside the White House were on TV to make the case for war. But there was never a consideration to present anti-war opinions to oppose those ideas. As Chris Matthews said on MSNBC's Hardball, everybody is for drone strikes, everybody is for airstrikes with this war. There is an acknowledgement there's no need to have a debate about whether the country should go to war. It's a decision about what kind of war we should be waging.
What's amazing is we still see on corporate television this preponderance of voices who supported the Iraq war. Is there any effort to engage the networks on why they keep having these guests back?
I think people ask this question all the time because it's just an obvious one. You had Phil Donahue sitting right here just a week ago explaining what happened in the run-up to war, 2002, 2003. And the question is...
When he was fired.
When he was fired from MSNBC, and when he said dissent was basically eliminated from mainstream media. Has anything changed from 2002 to 2003 to right now? And the answer in this study is absolutely not. If anything, the debate is more restricted now.
How did you do this study?
These are the guests that showed up for debate and discussion segments, so not sound bites, people who are invited to one-on-one interviews on the Sunday shows, on PBS NewsHour, and on a couple of the high-profile cable shows, Wolf Blitzer, special report on Fox News Channel.
You are activism director of FAIR. What are you recommending?
Well, the most obvious thing to ask people to do is to contact these shows and say, if we're going to war, and this week Congress is going to debate this war, the authorization for use of military force, have people who oppose the war. I know it sounds like a radical idea, but anti-war activists are more than happy to show up on television and debate this if they're given the chance.
And of course, if you look back to 2002 and 2003, it was the anti-war activists, the few peace activists you saw on television who ultimately were correct that there weren't weapons of mass destruction.
Absolutely. And, there isn't a question right now about WMDs. The question is Is violence the answer to this political problem that we have? And you would think the lessons from Afghanistan, from Iraq, and from Libya would be there's a need to have this debate, but the big media says no.
Peter Hart, thanks so much for being with us, Activism Director of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting.